Gary Cooper names 7 gay stars that he hates the most, and who dated him in secret. James Cooper was born in Helena, Montana, on May 7, 1901. He is known as Gary Cooper. Cooper was born into a well-known English family. His father, Charles Henry Cooper, was a respected justice on the Montana Supreme Court, and his mother, Alice Cooper, was a well-educated woman who loved culture and class. Cooper grew up on the family ranch as a boy. There, he learned to ride horses and developed the natural speed and rough grace that would later define his movie character. His childhood in Montana's vast landscapes gave him a strong sense of self-reliance and quiet strength, traits that people would later respect in his famous movie characters. At the age of 16, Cooper was sent to England to go to Dunstable Grammar School. After the war, he went back to Montana, but later he started going to Grinnell College in Iowa. At first, he studied painting with the goal of becoming a commercial illustrator, but fate had other ideas. Cooper dropped out of college after hurting his leg in a car accident and went to Los Angeles in the mid-1920s to look for work as a commercial artist. There, he learned about the movie business, which was booming at the time because of the popularity of silent movies. Gary Cooper almost didn't make it into Hollywood at all. As a child, he worked as a stuntman and extra in silent movies. Because he was good at writing and had a natural screen personality, he was often cast in westerns. His big break came in 1926 with the silent movie The Winning of Barbara Worth, where he had a small but important part that caught the attention of both producers and reviewers. He stood 6 feet 3 inches tall and had deep, striking eyes that made him stand out in a town full of actors-to-be. Talkies came out in the late 1920s, and Cooper made the switch to sound movies without any problems. This is something that not all silent stars were able to do. He became famous for his soft-spoken, understated, and emotionally powerful acting in the Virginia 1929, one of the first great talking westerns. Many artists of the time relied on dramatic flourishes, but Cooper's strength was in how natural he was. He was the perfect everyman in American movies because his acts were real, natural, and compelling. Gary Cooper was in more than 80 movies over the course of 30 years. Many of these movies are now considered classics. During the 1930s and 1940s, he became known as one of Hollywood's most bankable stars by playing heroes who were honest, brave, and good. He got a lot of praise for his part as a quiet, honest, small-town man who stands up to corporate greed in Frank Capra's 1936 movie, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. Sergeant York, 1941, where he played World War I hero Alvin York, was one of his most loved roles. The movie did well at the box office and with critics, and Cooper got his first Academy Award for Best Actor for his part. He then went on to play a lot of different roles in a lot of different movies, from baseball great Lou Gehrig in The Pride of the Yankees, 1942, to a noir western in The Westerner, 1940, showing how versatile he was as an actor. In 1952's High Noon, a smart and suspenseful western, Cooper played Marshal Will Kane, a man who fights criminals by himself when everyone else in town turns their backs on him. This may have been his most famous part. Cooper won his second Oscar for Best Actor for this part, which was a great example of how to act with restraint. The movie itself was a political allegory for the McCarthy era, and it made Cooper a figure of moral courage and personal responsibility. Cooper's health began to get worse in the late 1950s. He kept acting in movies like Friendly Persuasion, 1956, and The Hanging Tree, 1959. But he was secretly fighting prostate cancer, which in time spread to his lungs and bones. People didn't know much about his sickness because he kept working as long as he could. His last movie part was in The Naked Edge, 1961, which came out after his death. He married Veronica Balfe in 1933. She was a poised and elegant woman from New York's high society. Veronica Balfe was also known as Sandra Shaw on stage during her short playing career. Veronica was born into a wealthy family and was a devout Roman Catholic. She was also the niece of Cedric Gibbons, a famous art director at MGM who helped create the Oscar statue. Even though she was well known, Veronica tried to make a short-lived career in movies in the early 1930s. She was in a few movies, including No Other Woman, 1933, and the classic King Kong, 1933. But her roles were small. She was different from the Hollywood stars of the time because of her graceful beauty and quiet respect. It may have been this mix of refinement and simplicity that drew the usually shy Cooper to her. Their wedding got a lot of attention from people in the movie business and in New York's upper class. When she got married, Veronica stopped acting, so she could focus on being a wife and then a mother. They had one child together. In 1937, they had a girl named Maria Veronica Cooper. Gary Cooper loved his daughter very much, even though he was known for being stern on TV and quiet in real life. He often talked about Maria with love and pride. He worked hard to be a present and loving father, even though he had to be away a lot for shooting. Because Maria's mother wanted to give her a stable and private childhood, she grew up mostly out of the Hollywood spotlight. Still, her father's fame had to have an effect on her life. As Maria grew up, she developed a deep respect for her father's work and beliefs. She later wrote a book called Gary Cooper, Enduring Style, which praised both his contributions to film and his simple elegance and honesty in life. But in the late 1940s, Gary and Veronica's marriage started to fall apart, even though it seemed perfect at the time. Cooper carefully developed a public image as a gentleman and devoted family man. However, in Hollywood, he was known as a ladies' man, and he had several affairs with other women over the years. The worst of these relationships was the one he had with Patricia Neal, an actress he met on the set of The Fountainhead in 1949. Neal was almost 25 years younger than Cooper, and they were in a passionate but troubled relationship for a few years. Cooper allegedly felt torn between his duty to his family and his feelings for Neal, who loved him very much and was ready to give up her job to be with him. They had an affair that was known to everyone in Hollywood. It put a huge strain on Cooper's marriage. In 1951, the mental toll had grown too high, and Cooper and Veronica officially split up. He moved out of the family house and into a different one, but they were still legally married. Cooper refused to divorce Veronica, even though he loved Neal. He said it was because he was worried about their daughter Maria's health and spiritual development. He thought that getting a divorce would not only go against his Catholic views, but also hurt his relationship with his daughter, whose opinion meant a lot to him. Cooper's guilt and inner struggle were so strong that he ended his relationship with Neal, which broke her heart. Later, she talked about how badly her feelings were hurt and how the years she spent with Cooper were some of the worst of her life. After they broke up, Cooper started to think more seriously about his life, his values, and how important his family was to him. After being apart for 4 years, he and Veronica quietly got back together in 1955. Even though they didn't make a big deal out of their meeting in public, it was a real and important step for both of them. They went back to living together, going back to the routines they had in the past. At this point, Cooper, who had never been very religious, started to get closer to his wife and daughter's Roman Catholic faith. In his later years, when he was having a lot of health problems, this spiritual awakening grew stronger. Veronica was there for him when he was sick, lovingly taking care of him and helping him find peace in his last years. Their daughter Maria also stayed close, and even though success, cheating, and separation tested the family bond, it was strong in the end. In the dim light of Hollywood's golden age, few stars shone as strongly as Gary Cooper. He was tall, serious, and unbelievably good-looking, and he became the screen embodiment of American masculinity. He was known for his calm cowboy attitude and soft-spoken charm, but his real life was said to be much more difficult and full of problems. Long simmering rumors and an allegedly posthumous draft of his memoir found in a locked trunk at his home in Montana, say that he had a number of secret relationships with other Hollywood stars of the same gender. Even scarier, Cooper was said to have hated some of them by the time he died. In public, Cooper seemed calm and polite, but in his private works, he shows a man who is tormented by secrets, betrayal, and anger. Cooper is said to have written a very private letter to no one in which he named 7 stars with whom he had close relationships, but later came to dislike, fear, or even hate them. Here is an over-the-top look at those supposed relationships and what might have gone wrong with them. One is Cary Grant, the fake. Carl Grant was one of the biggest stars of his time. He was always ready for the camera. The notes that are thought to be from Cooper say that they met at a film event in Palm Springs in the late 1930s. "He laughed at everything I said," Cooper is said to have written. "It seemed real until it didn't." The relationship was never made public, but it may have been passionate, secretive, and ultimately heartbreaking. Grant, who was very protective of his image, is said to have ended things quickly after a gossip columnist saw him with Cooper. "He ran faster from me than any outlaw I ever played," Cooper said. Cooper supposedly said that what hurt the most was Grant's willingness to gaslight him afterward and act like it never happened. 2. Rock Hudson. The illusion. Even though they were from different generations as actors, this shocking story says that they often crossed paths in the 1950s. Cooper, who was in his early 50s at the time, was enamored with the young, tall Rock Hudson, whom he described as a Greek statue come to life. It was said that Cooper's writing turned dark when she talked about Hudson's unwillingness to be more than a secret. "He'd charm me all night and ignore me by morning, like I was a one-night stand that lasted a year," Cooper is said to have thought. What started out as love turned into a nasty dislike. Cooper is said to have thought Hudson's need to live 2 lives was both necessary at the time and a sign of weakness. Number 3. Randolph Scott, the foe. During the height of Westerns, film Cooper and Scott were often seen in pictures together. Off-screen, though, their supposed friendship was tense because they were rivals. Scott was known for being close to Cary Grant and reported to be dating her. He may have been torn between the 2 leading men. In his notes, Cooper is said to have said that Scott played me better than I did any other part. In the 1940s, they were said to have had a close relationship, but soon she became jealous of Grant's jobs, fame, and attention. Cooper wrote in a letter, "I didn't just lose a role, I lost a reason to trust." 4. John Anthony Perkins. What was projected? A strange match because they are not the same age. In the mid-1950s, Cooper is said to have had a short but close relationship with a young Anthony Perkins. Cooper was interested in the actor who was best known for his role in Psycho because he was said to be shy and smart. Cooper is said to have written, "He reminded me of who I was before Hollywood ate me alive." But Perkins supposedly pulled away because he was afraid of being found out, making Cooper feel alone. Cooper's notes say, "He put all of his fear on me and made me the bad guy in his mind." Cooper was still angry, but not because of the split. He thought he had been used as an emotional crutch. 5. The Montgomery Cliff. The Mirror. Montgomery. Cliff may have been the most emotionally open and weak of Cooper's claimed lovers. He said that their bond was like looking into a mirror that showed the truth. But the passion that brought them together might have also torn them apart. Cooper was under a lot of stress because Cliff was in a lot of pain inside because of trauma and addiction. It was like hugging Livewire to love Monty. You're bleeding, but you don't want to give up. In the end, Cooper was said to have been angry at Cliff for pulling him into the same depression and showing him how he himself had been denying himself. 6. Tab Hunter. The Bounce. It seems that Cooper had a short relationship with the blonde and boyish Tab Hunter. This happened when Cooper was more interested in feeling safe than making new friends. Sure, he was pretty, but he wasn't deep. I had to get better. He wanted to make news. Once more, the age difference was important. Cooper said that they had a transactional friendship. Hunter, who was about to become famous, is said to have asked Cooper for advice and help with relationships. Cooper is said to have written that he kissed like he was taking notes. When the relationship ended badly, Cooper accused Hunter of telling a gossip writer about private information, but there was never any proof. 7. James Dean. The fire. James Dean's name was one of the most shocking and sad on the list. If they did have an affair, it would have happened right before Dean's sad death in 1955. Cooper is said to have said that their time together was short, wild, and full of fire. Cooper was both interested and angry by Dean's defiant spirit. "I gave him more than I should have because he lived like everyone owed him something." Cooper was said to be angry not because the relationship ended, but because Dean was careless and died in an accident. Coop wrote, "He took away my chance to hate him in person." Gary Cooper never talked about any of these supposed relationships in public. Whether the writings that are said to be his are true or not, they show a man behind the Hollywood glamour who was struggling with his identity, image, and heartbreak. If they are real, these names, so well known and closely guarded, show how lonely it must be for stars who have to live in secret and make sacrifices for others. People looked up to Cooper for being quiet and strong, but he may have been carrying around an emotional load bigger than any saddle he ever put on a horse. Because of this, Cooper may have finally said out loud what he could never say in public while he was alone in Montana. No matter how great that love was, it left him with a list of regrets instead of friends. Gary Cooper died at the age of 60 in 1961, leaving behind one of Hollywood's most famous and loved stars. He died after a long and ultimately fatal fight with prostate cancer, a terrible disease that had spread beyond what was first seen. Cooper went to the doctor at first and tried to keep his illness a secret, but the cancer finally metastasized and moved to his lungs and bones. The once strong and tough main man, known for his quiet strength and commanding presence on screen, became more and more weak as his health got worse. Family and friends were heartbroken to see the change in a man who had starred in classics like High Noon, Sergeant York, and Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and represented tough American manhood. Cooper kept a very high level of respect and calmness, even though he was sick. He had always been very private, rarely seeking attention outside of movie parts, and he faced his death with the same quiet resolve. Veronica "Rocky" Balfe, his wife, and their daughter Maria were with him in his last months, along with other close family and friends. As word got out that he was sick, honors came in from all over the movie business. A lot of his co-workers, including his close friend Ernest Hemingway, were very sad about the death of a movie star. In the beginning, Gary Cooper was buried in California, where he had worked as an actor for most of his life, and where the Hollywood film business was based. Several famous people from the showbiz world are buried at the Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, where he was buried. But Rocky, his wife, later chose to have his body brought back to the East Coast. She made plans for Cooper's body to be moved to Sacred Heart Cemetery in Southampton, New York, because she thought it would be a better honor for his life and faith. He became a Catholic in the late 1950s. The move was very important because it showed both the family's ties to the area and Rocky's wish for her husband to rest in a more peaceful, family-friendly place away from the fame and attention of Hollywood. Sacred Heart Cemetery, which is in a quiet area of Long Island, became a place where Cooper's family and friends could visit him without being seen by anyone else. The couple's life together was also shown in it. Rocky had always put family and custom ahead of fame. She was a devout Catholic and a former debutante who gave up a possible Hollywood career to support her husband. By moving Gary Cooper's body, she made sure that his final resting place would reflect the things he came to value in his later years: family, faith, and quiet respect. Before Gary Cooper died, there was a time when movies were very different. He was more than just a movie star. He was an American hero who stood for honesty, humility, and strength. Many people still remember him and his movies, but they also talk about the real-life stories of people who knew him, loved him, and were moved by his life on and off the screen.